Before we start the show, let me talk to you about my friends over at W Energy. You ever want to take a shot of some sort of caffeine beverage throughout the day to get through the day, but you don't want to end up feeling tired and feel the jitters after it? Well, go check out W Energy. They got a wide variety of products to get you through the day with no crash, no jitters, and everything is all natural extraction from coffee plants. Go to www.ggdubby.gg. Use the promo code ZBHP to get your 10% off of any order. Again, w.ggdubby.gg. Promo code ZBHP. Get 10% off your order. On to the show. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of ZB's Horsepower Talk. As always, I'm ZB, Zack Brown. We got another awesome conversation coming to you right now. Justin Snyder joins me from Port Royal Speedway. He is on the PR team at that historic racetrack. Opened in 1938, Port Royal Speedway's half-mile dirt track located in Port Royal, Juniata County, Pennsylvania. Track champions goes back to 1950 with Eddie McCardle winning the first two track championships. Such a historic racetrack. Outlaws go there, All-Stars go there. It is home of the historic Tuscarora 50, which has recently made it to a 3-night event now. So join me at this incredible interview with Justin Snyder from Port Royal Speedway. So exactly what do you do at Port Royal Speedway, and how did you become involved with that track?
This is my 5th year at Port Royal Speedway. I'm part of the promotional team up there. There's 4 or 5 of us that kind of work right behind Steve O'Neill. Kind of doing day-to-day activities, race day activities, and everything. I started up there really just in a I guess you'd call it like a journalist role, basically doing write-ups and stuff like that. And it's evolved into quite a bit. Now, obviously, as you mentioned, I do all the social media work. I build all the graphics. I handle a lot of the sponsorship for race nights, season sponsorships, billboards, all the commercials, all the advertising you see, whether it be newspapers, radio, television. I kind of have my hand in all that. So pretty much anything that's involved in promoting the sport, promoting the track, our events, I'm kind of your go-to guy. So obviously Steve runs the show up there. He's our boss, and we're very thankful to have him. And he's a great guy to learn from. But for all intents and purposes, we're me along with a couple other guys are kind of the ones behind the scenes, making the engine go.
So obviously, Port's, for people that don't know, Port Royal is kind of middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. So kind of adapting to the modern times is a big deal for them. Just going to whole with the social media, with with how much Twitter, Facebook, everything has been taking off lately. How long have they started focus on modernizing that type of advertisement? You said 5. You've been there for 5 years. Is that kind of when they were starting to go to a more modern type of advertising with the whole upbringing of social media and everything?
Yeah, it's been I think it's been a steady evolution. When we got brought on, my background before that was as a journalist and a public affairs rep for the military in the Army for 12 years, which included a deployment to Iraq, and had a lot of experience there. And then, from
Appreciate
there,
your service with that.
Thank you for that. From there, I went to, me and Earl, the announcer up there, we, along with a couple other guys, we created Beer Hill Gang TV. And really that's where I dove in, hard. I recognized that there was, it's free advertising. There's a lot of ability to expose yourself and get out there. And, that's where Steve found us per se. He discovered, saw what we were doing and thought that with the direction he was trying to go and where he wanted to take things, we needed some younger blood up there. And, and that just doesn't mean young guys that, want to be there, but that's also, younger ideas and new ideas and fresh ideas. And admittedly, I'd say it took about a year or two to really, I don't want to say get our feet, firm on the ground, but really, I mean, admittedly, when you work for a fair board and you work for, an older generation of race fan and a way of doing things, it takes a little bit before people really start buying into what your ideas are or what you might be bringing to the table. So, I'd say it took about 2 years probably to really to go. From there, we created a brand new Facebook page. We rolled it out as Trackside Media at Racing Extravaganza, and we started doing interviews. And from there, I started building the graphics, and I started making things and putting video involved in it, and music and clips and Twitter and TikTok and all these things. And I think once people saw that we could be successful and it could stretch further, this year is really the first year that, while things haven't changed in the way we're doing things, I'm almost solely handling 95% of it now. We've relied in the past a lot on newspapers and other people to build things for us. And now I'm doing it all myself. I build all the graphics. I spend all the time. I take the time to put the times out, and I'm, we have race day graphics, and we have heat race lineups and feature lineups and stuff like that. And it's just, it's just something we want to do to differentiate ourselves from the other tracks. I think everybody is doing great things, and everyone's trying to build and creating their own identity. And it's just one of those things where I like to be able to, not only do I like it for our fans who are at home and the fans who are at the tracks, I think they enjoy it. I know the drivers enjoy the stuff that we're putting out throughout the night, but it also gives us our own identity. And it's really cool when I hear other tracks reaching out and going like, hey, what are you using to make that? Or how'd you do that? Or, awesome. I want to be able to set a standard, and I think that we're well on our way to doing that.
Have you seen it start paying off with bringing in a new generation of a fan base coming into Port Royal over these last couple of years, incorporating all this stuff?
I don't know that I could fully say that, but I will say, I can't tell you how many times I'll be, whether I'm chucking out frisbees or walking the grounds or whatever's going on, pre-race activities or setting up tables or whatever. I mean, because really, when I say we've got our hands in everything, we are doing everything. But I can't tell you how many times I hear somebody yell out and go like, "Hey, put me on TikTok," or "Hey, I love that video," or "Hey, like that was really neat. Like, how'd you do that?" So, people are noticing it, and I think again, it's just one of those things where it makes you happy to know that the stuff's paying off. And I know if there's obviously nights where maybe I can't be at the track, or maybe I've got something else that's a little more important for the night that I can't focus so much on some of the things I like to do. And I think, and I'll see that the next day when I'll get a message and it'll be like, "Hey, why didn't you put out the lineups?" Or why didn't I see the B main graphic? And I'm like, dude, like, I get it. I understand. I appreciate that you like the stuff, but sometimes it gets a little busy and I just can't do it. So, but we try, and it's a lot of work. It's not as easy as just sitting up there on a computer banging out graphics. I mean, I'm juggling about 6 or 7 different things that night, and I've got some great people who kind of feed me information and help me with things. But a lot of times it's me, on a Friday night after I'm done with my full-time job, it's me prepping all the graphics, making sure all the sponsors are in there, getting everything ready. That way, when it comes to race day, it's a lot of it's templates and it's all ready to go. And, that's another thing people don't understand about promoting. Really, it's not just a weekend gig that you show up at the track and you go. I mean, we're putting this stuff together Monday through Friday, and I'm pumping out new ideas and trying different things out. And it's just, it's a full big old process.
So I know Flow has come in big time in the last couple of years, and broadcasts a lot of the races at Port Royal through their network. How has that relationship, I guess, grown in the last few years, and as they're just showing tons of your races now?
I think anything that brings exposure to the track is good. There's a constant argument, and it's gotten bigger and crazier these days, obviously, with the the way things are, and everyone's wondering if it's helping, if it's hurting, are we getting enough? And I tell you, Flo's a great partner of ours, and we get emails once a week or saying, hey, I used to live in Port Royal and now I live in Missouri. I wish I could get back. I don't come home very often, but I get to see the races every week, and I can't thank you enough. Like that's what that's what Flow's for. Yeah, it's a tool, and I'll be honest with you. There's and I'm like anybody. I'm a big race fan. Obviously, I love what I do. I'm involved in it, but it's one of those things where I don't think many of us want to be uncomfortable race fans. We don't want to be cold. We don't want to be wet. We don't want to be sitting out until midnight. And on nights where that looks like that might be something we're going to handle. Listen, that's if it was up to me and I wasn't working there, I might be watching from home too. So I understand it completely. But I would say the one thing with Flow and Dirt Vision and all these other streaming services that people I don't want to say they maybe don't necessarily understand or know, but the bottom line is the people who are watching at home are the people who weren't going to come in the first place. I don't know that we're losing fans because of streaming. I think what we're doing is gaining exposure, and you're giving people an outlet on nights where it might not be ideal to be at the racetrack. And yes, that at the end of the day, you're losing a few bucks, and that stinks. But at the end, but also I think you want to remain fresh in those fans' minds. If say they don't come to the races for 3 months, it will suddenly maybe Saturday night, going to karaoke or going to happy hour or hitting up a movie sound a lot more comfortable because you just don't remember the races and it's not something on the tip of your mind. And I think what Flow gives us is the ability to stay relevant on nights where maybe people have other ideas, and it keeps it fresh and it keeps them wanting more, and it's going to get them to come to the track. So ultimately, I think that partnership is great. I think it's something that, yeah, I mean, listen, this is 2023. We're evolving. It's a new world.
Yep.
There's new avenues, just like we're talking about social media and all these things. You got to embrace it as much as you can, or you're going to get left behind. And I think the bottom line is I don't think we're losing fans. I think along the way we're probably gaining fans, and in the long term, I think that's what you want. We have a kind of a saying at the racetrack, and it's I'm not worried about you coming. I'm just worried about getting you there. And if I get you there once, you're going to come back. I think in most cases, they're going to come back.
Oh, yeah.
And if they don't, you know what? We got them to come once and try it, and maybe they'll tell a friend, and a friend will come. So the bottom line is, it's giving us exposure, and it's exposure we didn't have before.
Well, these streaming services for me especially. I mean, I'm from up there, and I've gone to races at Port. I've gone to the Grove, all these tracks. But since moving down here in North Carolina, obviously I don't get to go up there that often. But using Flow and all the other streaming services, I'm able to catch these races and still be able to enjoy them from far away. And I think that, like you were saying, I see it every weekend, and it's pretty dang packed. There's also not a whole lot to do around there. So, I mean, it's
well, the thing is, in Port Royal it's such a little tight knit town. And one thing is we've never lost the support of the locals. And, I don't see a circumstance or anything, unless maybe you're sick or, yeah, there's some older people who maybe can't get to the track as much as they are. But, nobody down on 8th Street is sitting at home on race night because they just didn't want to come, because they thought they could watch at home. Those people are coming, and they're going to come every week. And we rely on those people a lot, because those are our core people. Those are our fan base. It's our family. Those are the ones that we see every week, at the same time in the same seats for the last 30 years. Those are our, that's our heartbeat. And they haven't gone anywhere. And if Flow brings us people to add to that big family, because it's like a big family, yes, sign me up. Let's go. Bring them on in. I don't care where you're coming from or how you found out about it, but I'm glad you're here. So
that's awesome. Commercials suck, don't they? But this one's worth it. I'm here to talk about Lickety Lou's Booyah sauce. 3 different flavors: original, yellow, and spicy. Go check them out at licketyloos.com. Check out some of their apparel, just like this shirt I'm wearing right here. Again, that's licketyloos.com. Go check them out. If you're not anywhere near one of their stores that they sell it, order online. They'll ship it to you. It'd be pretty awesome. back to the show. Well, I wanted to talk about this past weekend's racing, but of course, Mother Nature wanted to have different plans and snow out everything that was happening this weekend. But before we kind of get into the snow stuff, I just kind of want to see from your perspective, is there a difference in preparing for a regular local race for a week than there is for, say, the Outlaws coming to town like last week? Is there a lot more preparation going into an outlaw thing? And I guess there's a lot of talk between Port Royal, the Speedway, you, and World of Outlaws and everything.
I don't think it's that different, and a lot of that is because of our mindset. I said about we kind of have things we base of the way we promote on, and one of the things we always say is we don't host races at Port Royal Speedway. We host events, and that's every single week. I don't care if it's a $5,000 to win show or if it's a $55,000 to win show. We treat them all the same, and every one of them we give it the red carpet, and we try and give you an experience that you're going to go home and remember. With that being said, obviously when the World of Outlaws are coming to town, there's some added excitement. You've got some big names there, and a lot of fans, flock to that stuff, especially from out of state or out of the area. And I know as a kid growing up, I went to Silver Spring Speedway a lot. That was kind of my home. And, when we went to Williams Grove or we went to a Port Royal, when we went to a Lincoln, it was because the World of Outlaws came to town. So, yeah, they gained an extra fan those nights because it's not that we didn't want to go, but, we had to pick and choose. We couldn't afford to go every night to, 2 nights a week. Yeah, the World of Outlaws still have some prestige, and they still have excitement, and they still have a big name and a fan base that you do got to sort of cater to a little bit. And you want those people to feel like they're just as welcome as anybody who's there on a regular basis, but you also don't want your locals to feel like you forgot about them either. Yeah. So, it's a slippery slope, but at the end of the day, I'd say the biggest change is just there's a buzz, and it's just like, and this year I think that's why it was so unique what we were trying to do, and it's a bummer we didn't get it in, but you already have that buzz on opening day where everyone's excited to get back to the track and they're pumped up, and it's like going to a family reunion. You haven't seen everybody in a year, and you show up and you're shaking hands and you're asking how the kids are, or how the job's going, and you're meeting people that you haven't seen all year long, and they're shaking off that rust. And then we were going to come in the next week with a bigger buzz of the World of Outlaws for 2 nights at $10,000 to win. And it just, it kind of takes the wind out of your sails a little bit when you get weather like that. But, we all knew it could happen. I mean, for Christ's sakes, it's March. So, it is what it is. And we'll regroup, and we'll come back here in 2 weeks with the ULMS late models and another sprint car show. And we'll just pick back up where we left off, and we'll see those guys in October.
For weather, I guess snow out, usually I would say rain out, because that's usually what happens. But obviously we're still in the midst of winter, especially up there. Who exactly decides? Do you correlate with the Outlaws and kind of look at the weather yourselves and kind of figure out, hey, we need to get this decided a few days before we even give the snow a chance to be here? Because I've been to tracks before, it cancels. I'm on the way to the track, and it's like an hour before a green flag drops. So how does that all work with you guys?
I think it's one of those things where, to be honest, we were looking at the weather opening day. We knew it was coming. And we talked about it, but you don't want to jump too early, because obviously, we all know weather reports change and things fluctuate. And to be honest, there's a lot of people who think we probably went too early. And we did have an option for Sunday for a rain date, and it's just, we started talking about it that night. What's our thoughts? When are we going to really start thinking this may not happen? And I know, Steve and the group in charge kind of met midweek and voiced their concerns. And to be honest with you, one of the things people aren't going to know and aren't going to understand is, we have such a good communication and good fan base here in central Pennsylvania, especially with the news. Lindsey Barnett comes out, covers us almost weekly. That they're race fans too, and they're looking at it going, this might not happen. And it's a big story for them too. So their weather people were reaching out to us and saying, this is what it's looking like, this is what we see. And quite honestly, it was one of those things where Wednesday comes around, and we said, if we're going to not do this, we need to tell people now, because we don't want anybody driving, especially with gas prices and people picking and choosing on whether or not they want to come to these events and spending their hard-earned money. You don't want anyone to feel like they've wasted their dollars on you, and you don't want them to think you didn't give them the best effort to get it in. Right. And then, quite honestly, you start selling tickets and you don't get a show in, it turns into a nightmare. Rain check deals are not easy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's a lot. And, you got to start thinking, can we make this up? Can we move it? Can we change it? Blah, blah, and it's tough. But the bottom line is, we knew snow was coming Friday, so Friday was definitely off the books. It wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Saturday, then, in terms, we knew it would be cold. It looked like it was going to be windy, and there was still going to be some after effects. And we said, it's not going to set again. Then this is where streaming comes into the play almost a little bit, where you got to start thinking, okay, let's say we do hypothetically find a way to get this in. Let's say it's a late night, everyone's wet, they're cold. How many people are going to stick around? How many are going to come back? When Sunday finally comes around, you had Williams Grove running their opener, and I have no doubt that we could have worked a deal with these tracks and said, hey, like, you guys got the Outlaws next week. This is a big deal for us. We want to get one night in. I think it could have happened. But at the end of the day, we felt pretty confident probably that, they weren't going to be in the best situation either, to where even their show might not happen, which it ultimately didn't.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot that goes into looking at whether or not a race weekend can or will happen. Beyond, we don't go in there and go, hey, we're going to lose our asses this week. We're not going to do this, because we always want to host the race. We want to bring people to the show, but you got to look at all the elements, and ultimately, Mother Nature just didn't play friendly. And again, we'll regroup and we'll come back here in a couple of weeks, and I have no doubt we'll have a pretty packed house as well. So I'm excited.
Was there any talk about doing a makeup day for that outlaw race? Obviously, you were talking about maybe Sunday, but like a completely different month. Was there any talk about that, or just canceling it all together and just going racing in October?
We chat about those things, and there's always an option to try and make that up, especially when it's a big event. But the bottom line is, the World of Outlaws are traveling all over the country.
Yeah.
We have one of the biggest and strongest schedules in the country when it comes to large events and big paying events. And ultimately, it'd probably come down to one of those things where it's like, we're going to have to give up something to get something. And we aren't necessarily, midweek deals are not great for us. And that's not a knock on anything, but it would be tough to like squeeze it in on a Thursday or something, because then you got to ask people getting off work to rush to the track. And when you're in such a tight little town and you've got, hardworking, blue collar individuals, you're asking a lot for them to plug out a weekend or a day that maybe they had depended on all year long when it comes to their vacation. So, I'm not going to say we didn't kick it around, but ultimately it was just, there was too much to really make it happen. And who knows, things happen, things change, and maybe in a month or so or a week, who knows, maybe they come back and go, hey, we found something that works.
Yeah.
But for right now, it's not on the table.
Well, definitely, we'll stay tuned for that. Hopefully there is something they'll be able to work out. That'd be great. It's always fun, especially if PA Posse can come up there and give a good whipping to the Outlaws. So that's always fun to see too. I want to flash back a little bit to a year that people want to forget about, 2020, the whole COVID year. From, I guess, your perspective and the whole Speedway's perspective, did COVID affect things a lot? I was up there in 2020 and it seemed like it was kind of business as usual. And I think a lot of people appreciated that, because there was something that was a feeling of normalcy back then.
I tell you what, it was a blessing and a curse. Obviously, tough time for our country, tough time for our people. I can't tell you. Again, we talked about that excitement of opening day, and we were able to get in opening day, and I want to say we had a week or two in, I think we had one race in, and next thing you know, we're shut down. We come up with all this excitement, all this momentum. We've got the tunnel going up, and we've got all these new fun things, and suddenly we can't use them. We can't show people. We can't, and that stinks. That sucks. And I know everybody else was disappointed by it. And however, I will say it did probably give us some time that we didn't, like, we not everything was ready to start that year. We had some projects that we really were looking forward to displaying, and that it gave us some extra time that we didn't think we'd have. And I think ultimately that allowed us to make those projects better, because now we're looking for how can we stay involved in this race deal? How can we keep going? And one of the cool things that brought about, and I think I will credit it with a lot of what we were able to do on the social media front. I said right away, I said, listen, we need to, we got to keep these people thinking about racing, because we don't know how long this is going to go. And first thing I said was, number one, I'm going to take every one of the drivers who's ever raced here, and I'm going to offer them the ability to sell their merchandise on our social media pages, because that's how they're going to make money during this break. And people were excited about that. They liked it. They still could get the stuff. Second, I said, we need to bring these drivers back to the fans. And so we started doing Facebook Live sessions where we turn over our page for an hour a night to a different guy, whether it be a World of Outlaw driver, a Lucas Oil driver, modified guys, NASCAR guys, sprint car guys, late model guys, four-cylinder, whatever we could find. If they had a place at the racetrack at any point, we were going to give them a platform to get on and just let the fans talk to them and let them know, hey, what the hell are you doing during this break? We're missing seeing at the racetrack. And we saw like Terry McCarl working in the shop. We saw, guys walking their dogs. We saw guys, sitting on the couch watching TV, doing home projects, and it not only kept racing on the mind of our fans, but it also showed that these are real people too, who are experiencing it just like you guys. And I had a lot of guys reach out and go, these are great ideas. Like, do you mind if we steal this, or do you mind? And I was like, no, man, do it. Like, I want you all to succeed when you come back. And that's exactly what we did. Racing, when we came back, listen, realistically, we are never going to get crowds like we've had that year ever again for a full season. It's not going to happen. It's unrealistic. And it's a credit to the people. It's also, it's part of the scenario, and that people were itching to go, and we were the biggest and only outlet for a lot of people, especially in Pennsylvania. There was a lot of things on lockdown, and somehow we snuck through the cracks, and we were able to get back going. And, whereas me as a guy, I really fell in love with the game of golf at that time, because it was something I could do, and I had already been playing it, but I really was able to invest in it. Racing was that lifeline for those people when it came back too. And, we saw crazy crowds, and we made more money than we'd ever made. And I mean, it was wild. And I credit the people so much, because they didn't have to spend their money with us, and they didn't have to do those things, but they did. And I'm so glad that we were able to be that lifeline for them. It says a lot about the racing community as a whole. They always bond together, and it set off a firestorm that we're still trying to keep up with a couple of years down the road, because, you have that success in a year where, frankly, all your backs are up against the wall, and you probably shouldn't be succeeding, and you're overwhelmingly going above and beyond and exceeding expectations. And now it's like, how do we do that every year? And it's like, we can't. Now we're back to a time when guys got to worry about, filling up their tanks of gas, or going to their jobs, and getting kids to and from daycare, and things like that. And those are real world problems that people always have. And we're very cognizant of that. So the COVID year was a wild one. It was, from a PR perspective, it was one of the most challenging things I've probably ever experienced.
Of course.
Just trying to constantly put a positive spin on things. How do we make people think it's going to be okay? How do we tell them there's a light at the end of this tunnel? I remember joking with Steve O'Neill, because all year we'd been dealing with, you're not supposed to have more than 400 people here. You're not, whatever it was. And obviously I think you can look back and say that wasn't happening. But at the time, it was always a constant joke. Like, don't advertise the crowd. Don't do that. So, and the thing is I remember, like, Tuscarora 50 night, we had a packed house. We sold this place out to the gills. I mean, literally, we had to sell out. We didn't have a single seat left for sale at the box office. So we'd never done that. The infield is asses to elbows. People are excited. It's crazy. You got the fair going on. And I remember Steve getting people hyped up, because we were announcing we were going to go to 3 days the next year. And I said, Steve, tell him on the mic next year we can't wait to do this when we can have you all here. Because like I said, it was just like a joke, like, oh look, there's 25 people out here, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was crazy, and it's I think it made us all better. It definitely taught us a lot about how to innovate and how to change, and it did. It kept us as promoters on our toes every week, because we were constantly getting regulations and rules and stuff thrown at us, and it was like, now what? Now we can't do this now. We can't do that now. Like, how do we get around that? Oh, now we need to get sanitizer stations. Now we need masks. Now we need, like, it was tough. And I will say I credit our entire crew, because they all worked their asses off, and we all came out better off in the end. And it's just it's a year we'll definitely never forget anytime soon. That's for sure.
Well, as a fan and third generation in a whole racing family, we do appreciate that you guys made it work and kind of got our minds off of things. And like you were saying, it's a way to get your mind off of what's actually happening, get away. It's an escape. And that's where really racing is for everybody. That's what the track's meant to be. You're not there to worry about the problems that you have going on. You're there to enjoy it. It's an entertainment facility. Like you're saying, you put on events, not just races. So again, hats off to you guys for doing that and making it a great experience that year for us, and be able to get us through that and have a lot more positive energy from it.
Yeah, well, like I said, we appreciate it. It was listen, we were all going through it together. So it's nice to be able to play a part and play a role, and you know, like I said, I think we're on the upswing on the other side of things now, but it's certainly something we'll never forget. So.
Well, one thing I want to touch on real quick. Last a couple episodes ago, I had a professional iRacing driver on the program, and he talked about how he goes about his business there, and what actually kind of makes him a professional and everything. I think a lot of people were asking for it for a long time, and Port Royal ended up getting on iRacing's radar and getting scanned in. They're actually in the simulator now. So touch on that, and how did that come to be?
You know, I think that's the thing where ultimately I think we all felt at some point we would be there with our success, with how we've grown, with the races we hold, the profile we've gained. You know, I think at some point we all said, you know, it's going to happen at some point. But I can tell you, frankly, like, it wasn't us pushing for it. It was the fans.
Yeah.
And it was every week on social media. They were pushing and pushing, and I just kind of was like, let's get behind this. Let's go with them. Yeah, we want to be on iRacing. Yeah, we want to be on the World of Outlaw Sprint Car game. Yeah, we want to. Yeah, and ultimately it ended up happening. You know, there's some cool things involved with that, and it's a neat experience in itself to see them scan the track and how they do everything. But ultimately, it's a credit to the fans. They made that happen. I think it was going to happen at some point, but they made it happen faster than it probably was gonna. So ultimately, again, along with streaming, it's just another bit of exposure for us. You know, people worldwide are racing at Port Royal Speedway, and it's neat. It's you know, especially when you're in such a little town like Port Royal, it's a shot in the arm that they weren't going to get from a normal. The Juniata County Agricultural Association wasn't going to be able to pull those numbers anywhere else other than racing, and they're reaping it, and it's so cool. It's great. You know, I'm not a Port Royal loco. I live in you know, Mechanicsburg, right down the road from Williams Grove, but I do feel like that's kind of my. I mean, it is. I live up there half a year for the last 5 years, all for all intents and purposes. I'm eating at the restaurants. I'm, you know, helping people. I'm meeting people. I'm, you know, walking the streets. It's a neat little town, and it does make you very proud to see a place like that. Because quite frankly, if there weren't people coming in there for race week, I don't know what they're going to come to Port Royal for, because there's not a whole lot there, to be honest. But and behind the scenes, there's a lot of really great people, a lot of hardworking people, and it's really cool to be able to give those people a little bit of a platform, and they obviously deserve it.
Well, that's awesome. Well, as we kind of wrap up things, are there any projects behind the scenes that are kind of happening as you're continuing to grow the Speedway? I mean, it's all everything's always evolving, and I guess, is there anything in the works, and what are the kind of the goals and expectations for the next few years as Port continues to grow?
I wouldn't say that there's any specific projects. That's a tough thing to kind of explain to people sometimes when you've been on such a massive, rapid upswing in the last 5 to 10 years. When you go from putting up big old billboards and tunnels and reshaping the track and new victory lanes and press boxes and suites, it's like, what are they going to do next? And
Yeah.
I think there's a point where you get to a spot and you go, all right, how do we capitalize on what we have and just make that better now? You gotta, as the old saying is, it's not so hard to get to the top. It's harder to stay there. And I think what you're seeing now is us taking the platform we've earned and been given and trying to make that better for not only us and our fans, but the rest of the racetracks in the area and the rest of the tracks across the country. We do little projects, whether it be fresh paints on a fresh set of paint on the jersey barriers and fresh hand painted signs and, new clay on the track every year and new banners and just little things that maybe sometimes goes unnoticed, to be honest. But also the big thing this year is we raised purses this year. I think we went to a 5,000 to win sprint car show every week, which is among the tops in the country.
That's incredible.
We were paying 4,000 to win every week for late models. We're paying 1,500 to win every week for limited late models. So, 1,000 for 10th is the sprint cars. You've got show up money. You've got money that a few years ago might have only been able to be gained for a sanctioned show, and now we're giving it to you every week. And with that being said, we are taking a bit of a risk because you never know.
Yep.
As much as people want to believe, Port Royal is just playing with house money and we've got grants and we're doing all these things. That is simply not accurate.
Yeah.
Yes, we do get those things from time to time, but it's not what people think it is. And it's very specific. And, you will use this for safety upgrades. You will use this for this. It has nothing to do with the racing product and how much we can pay guys and what we can do. It's us taking a shot and taking a chance and going, all right, like, how do we reward the people who are coming here every week now and say you deserve it? And our race drivers, our teams, I know, are ecstatic about it, and we're really banking on them showing up every week. We're banking on them, especially like in the late model field, you've got 50,000 to win, 20,000 to win, 10,000 to win shows every other day across the country. And if I'm a driver, I'm looking at that and going like, man, I can make a lot of money if I'm pretty competitive. We want to give those guys an outlet to go, listen, yeah, we understand. You want to go be part of the Outdoor Million? It's history. Like, do it, please. Enjoy it. Make your moments. Make your memories. But don't forget, the other 22 weeks of the year, Port Royal's got a pretty good option for you. And I think we've given that to the 410 drivers and the late model drivers, and now the limiteds are getting some exposure too. And it's just it is. And, we talked about it on the air last week, but a lot of it's going to rely on the fans. Yes, I talked about streaming being a plus and then being excited about it and enjoying it. But you know what? It is going to take some nights where we need a lot of fans in the stands. We're going to need you to show up, and we're going to need you to come out and be the great fans that we know you are. Because, to do it, we got to have great supporters, and we do have some great sponsors who've helped us this year, and we've got great, board members and people who believe in what we're doing. And, I don't want to look at this and say, 5,000 to win is really great, but they're done. Listen, I hope in a couple of years we can pay 6,000 to win. I hope we can, pay $1,000 to start one day. I don't know. A lot of that's unrealistic, but at the same time, we're striving to make it that consistent, great presence, and this is where it starts. So I'm excited about it. I know, like I said, our fans, our drivers, our sponsors, everyone, they're hyped up because we're kind of setting a precedent, and we're sticking our necks out and saying we can do this, and then we can do it and be successful and make money and not set ourselves back. And there is a lot that's going to go into it, but ultimately I think it's going to be a big plus for our fans and our drivers because it's just going to make Port Royal all that more special every week.
Well, Justin, I do appreciate you getting on here, kind of talking about one of the most historic racetracks, especially in central Pennsylvania and all of dirt racing. Being from there, seeing all the races in person, it's just awesome to see how much it's grown. And as fans, we're definitely looking forward to this year. Myself, I'm going to try to make it up for the Tuscarora 50 in September, as that's one of the races on the calendar I have circled to go see. So that and the National Open at Grove. But again, I appreciate you coming on here. Best of luck this year, and just continue to keep doing the awesome exposure on social media as you have been. I'll put the link in the description and everything, so everybody can go follow you. And if anybody's not too far from Port Royal, Pennsylvania, go check out some races. It's a bunch of good stuff, and they'll release their schedule on their social media and everything. So pick a date and go see one in person. You'll definitely won't regret it. So Justin, anything before we get off of here?
No, like I said, like you pointed out, ultimately, you can find us. We still use the website, obviously, PortRoyalSpeedway.com. Port Royal Speedway Trackside Media is where you'll find all of our Facebook activity, and admittedly, that's probably where we're most constant. You can find the most up-to-date information there, whether it be what the weather is going to be like coming into race day, and cancellations, who might be showing up, giveaways, different things. We try and keep that page. It's a 7-day-a-week page. It's not just race day. So, get on there, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. We've got them all, and we're excited. We're happy. It's note. I know we didn't really talk about it, but we talked about the purses. General admission prices are not changing. It's going to be $20 a week, for GA and for regular shows, and obviously some prices for outlaws or outstars, and they fluctuate, but ultimately, we're not taking the money out of the fans' pockets to make this happen. This is it's something for you guys as well, just as much as for the drivers. So we really look forward to having everybody, and come by, say hi, introduce yourself. I'm a big people person. I love chatting with guys, and hopefully we see you at the track.
Well, that's what it's all about. All right, everybody, from Port Royal Speedway, Justin Snyder. Thank you, Justin.